Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first Buffalo Inno event, Ecosystem 101, an overview of Buffalo's tech and startup communities. I'm John Tebow, publisher of Buffalo Business First and Buffalo Inno, and I'm so glad that you could all join us for today's inaugural event. Buffalo Inno launched this May as a local source for startups and the leading local source of information showcasing innovation and technology in Western New York. We're a part of American Inno, a network consisting of 16 and growing entrepreneurial markets across the country, including Boston, Austin, Charlotte, Atlanta, Houston, and Washington, D.C., to name a few. Many thanks to Business First reporter Dan Miner, who's been covering this sector for quite some time and has been instrumental in giving Inno its voice during this launch, or if you please, startup phase. We'll hear a lot more from Dan in a short while. It's also important for me to recognize the two founding partners who made launching Buffalo Inno possible. They are the University at Buffalo Business and Entrepreneur Partnerships, and another group instrumental in Western New York's startup success, 43 North. At this time, I'd like to introduce Maura Devlin, 43 North's Vice President of Marketing Strategy and Public Relations, to say a few words. Maura?
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here today and be representing 43 North and get a chance for some people outside of Buffalo to hear about all the really great and exciting things that are happening on the ground here relative to our startup ecosystem. 43 North is an accelerator that invests $5 million annually through one of the world's largest startup competitions. In fact, the deadline for our 2021 competition is fast approaching. It's this Monday, July 19th. We typically, at 43 North, we typically look for seed stage companies, and we offer an opportunity for those companies to receive up to $1 million in funding from us. But it's really so much more than an investment that you get when you become a part of 43 North. We offer mentorship. We offer free incubator space in our office here in Seneca One Tower, connections to capital, a platform approach that wraps you with services like marketing support. And so it's something that can be a really great thing to help really drive and accelerate the growth of businesses. And to date, we've invested $30 million into 51 companies. We have a portfolio valuation of nearly $6 billion. We have a unicorn and a publicly traded company among our ranks. And I'm really excited to report that there's just a number of other companies and top contenders that are following behind them. And have a real shot here to do something great. And you'll get to meet some of these companies here today. 43 North came onto the scene in Buffalo in 2014, really as a way to attract and retain startups in Buffalo to ultimately drive economic development and create jobs here. And we have seen just explosive growth in the last seven short years. And truthfully, we're really just getting started. So if you're a founder or you know a founder that could be a good fit for our program, I really would encourage you to go check out 43north.org, learn more about the competition itself, more about what we have to offer. Like I said, the deadline's fast approaching. But if you're a founder who thinks you could thrive in Buffalo, check it out. Apply as soon as you can. And we're here through the weekend to offer help to get people through that application. So thanks for having us here, John. And like I said, just looking forward for everyone to get a chance to see what Buffalo's startup ecosystem is all about. And of course, get to know some of the 43 North portfolio companies that are with us today.
Thanks a lot, Maura, and good luck to everyone. And thank you to you and 43 North for all that you do and continue to do here in our community. Today's event, as we said, is titled Ecosystem 101, an overview of Buffalo's tech and startup communities. We have a robust and experienced group of participants with us for today's program. And for that, I want to turn it over to Buffalo Inno and Business First reporter Dan Miner, who will introduce you to the group and lead today's discussion. Dan?
Hey, John. Thank you. And thanks to everyone else here for supporting Buffalo Inno as it gets off the ground. Buffalo's startup economy was basically starting from scratch 10 years ago. Founders were like novelties or curiosities, or maybe a little bit of both. $100,000 was a major funding round. And you could walk into the only incubator in town and get to know basically every critical startup personality within 5 minutes. That definitively is not the case anymore. growth stage tech firms have become a legitimate economic force in Buffalo. They're becoming some of the biggest companies in town. They're driving commercial real estate projects in downtown Buffalo. They're a major business strategy for local attorneys, accountants, insurance brokers, and the like. They're attracting big-time coastal investors, and they're convincing young professionals who are just out of college that this is the industry in which to test their competitiveness and their ambition. So Buffalo is really a journalism brand where we formalize the coverage of all of those things. It's a recognition of everything that's been created, and it's a statement about how much room the region's startup economy has to grow. Before we get going, I just want to have a quick reminder: we are going to be fielding questions from our audience. Type them not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box. And for those that are relevant and work with the flow of the discussion, we'll direct them to our various panelists. So just to get into the program, we're going to start off with a review of some of the most exciting startups that Buffalo has to offer. Local startups are raising everything from pre-seed to Series C and D rounds. They're choosing Buffalo as a headquarters over other cities. And perhaps most importantly, they think that Buffalo is a place that can be a launch pad in building their market-leading idea. We've got 4 companies that we're going to introduce to our audience, which includes viewers from around the country, according to our registration rules. And we're going to start off today with Ofo Ezeugwu, the founder and CEO of Who's Your Landlord, which is a platform that seeks to foster meaningful communication between landlords and renters. Ofo's company won an award in the 43 North competition and moved to Buffalo just before the pandemic struck. Ofo, how are you today?
I'm good. It's good to see you all, and happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Listen, let's start off with a summary of your company and the progress that it's making. Tell us about what's going on with Who's Your Landlord.
Sure. So Who's Your Landlord is a mobile platform. We provide landlord reviews, housing educational content, and data and predictive analytics to help home providers to better engage and understand their residents. The entire goal there is to improve retention rates, and also to help inform those home providers on the capital improvements they want to make in their properties. Where we are today, we have over 22,000 home providers reviewed in our platform across 370 plus US cities. We're partnered with Berkadia, the 3rd largest multifamily lender in the United States. And we're just constantly building. We have several companies right now that have gone through our pilots, and now we move them on to full contracts. And so it's an exciting time.
Thanks. Yeah. How did you come out of the pandemic? Tell me a little bit more about what the company's sort of trajectory right now.
Sure. So we came out the pandemic with new technology. I think last year was very interesting because there was so much ambiguity and uncertainty on both sides, whether you're a resident or a home provider, which are landlords, property managers, real estate developers, et cetera. And so we found ourselves in a position where a lot of our job ended up being explaining that housing educational piece ended up becoming very important and very integral to our business. And so as we look to move towards, and we created more content around, COVID-19 and how to handle that, entering the new year, give us a new opportunity to unveil technology we had been building behind the scenes last year, and start to roll it out. And that, I think the response has been extremely strong to it so far.
Yeah, one of the things that you've explained to me before that really I thought got to the heart of your business idea was the value that this has to landlords. Right. Which I came into one of our interviews kind of thinking that landlords might not want to hear from, like, the less you hear, the better. And you kind of disabused me of that notion, and it's a lot more sophisticated of an idea than I had sort of thought. Tell me a little bit about that.
For sure. I mean, without getting too dark here, and this isn't one for one in terms of the residential living space, but all of us are privy to what's happened in Miami at Surfside, with the building collapsing, with the condominium, right? And when you think about just the kind of details that were shared by the owner residents for a while, and not much was done about it, and it ended in such a tragic event, it speaks to how a lot of this information isn't just cosmetic information about making your building look better in the eyes of of people. These are real insights that impact your business holistically, right? You know, you want to understand the subjective insights from your residents around how they feel about your responsive rate, you know, the condition of the property, those kind of insights. But you also want to understand, you know, what can be improved to better their living experience. Because if you understand that, your retention rates go up. You know, your ability to lease up new buildings is easier because you can rely on the feedback and insights from previous residents that are happy. And holistically, we can give you those insights and give you now insights into the future of, you know, what are some of the markers you need to be paying attention to when a resident isn't happy, or that we can highlight they aren't happy or they are happy. You just better know what to do when it comes to decision making, and at the end of the day, increasing your net operating income as a real estate business.
Ofo, you're a world traveler. You've lived in a lot of different places as well. Why are you building your business in Buffalo? What's it like building your business in Buffalo?
Well, you know, I have a lot of good friends in Buffalo. You know, some of them actually use our software. You know, so shout out to the Simonellis, both Paul and Kyle. Shout out to Mike Tobin over at Fresh Catch. You know, Colleen Mora at 43 North, like the whole crew at 43 North, Christian, everybody. I've been able to build good friendships in Buffalo, and you know, beyond that is kind of a next step. It's, you know, how do we build our business efficiently? And so we've been committed to building our product team, you know, building our data science team in Buffalo. My thoughts are there's so many just talented students coming out of the surrounding universities, and there's so many opportunities to really test out our software. I mean, we've been providing opportunities with Simonelli, with Savarino, and other groups that you just probably wouldn't have had in other locations, to really get our software off the ground, allow it to be tested and get feedback from genuine good people. And that's been, you know, everything for our business.
All right. Thanks, Ofo. And good luck to you going forward. We'll be watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
We're going to move on now to Emily Bowman, the founder and CEO of Braid Babes. So for me, who hasn't done a whole lot of braiding in my life, the business idea behind Braid Babes didn't immediately click when you first described it to me, Emily. It wasn't until I went home and I told my wife about what you do, and she was more excited after 8 years of writing startups in the Braid Babes concept than any other company I've written about. And so I bring that up because, you know, now Braid Babe's now actively opening new markets across the US, has a way of developing a rabid following, both in its customers and in its employees. So Emily, how you doing today?
Yeah, hi. I know. So it's fun because all women love braids. Not all, most women love braids, but there's never been a way to like buy a great braid. So we're like the first company doing this. So there's always been individuals, and now we're like the first. There's no one in the US doing a braid company, and it's really cool. I say we're like the 2020 version, or 2021. We don't want to say 2020. We're the 2021 version of Dry Bar. So yeah, we're mobile braiders. So our braiders are employees. They have kits, and they are trained fully on the Braid Babe experience, consistency, quality, on brand. Our braiders become best friends. We train them up. We actually have a boot camp where you become Braid Babe certified, which is open to the public. So we actually pull in 10% of our revenue is from our training, which is really cool. So we started in Buffalo. That's where I'm from. And we then launched Rochester as our first like test city. What do our processes look like? This spring we launched Nashville, and then July 1st we launched Raleigh. What's cool is Raleigh feels just like Buffalo, so it feels like home. They love us already. So I know one of the questions will be Buffalo. I have lots that I can say about Buffalo. This spring, we raised our pre-seed round full of angels. We went out to raise 200,000, and we oversubscribed to 500,000. And we will be applying to 43 North this weekend. True procrastination at its finest. I have the application up right now.
Well, clearly you have a lot going on. You know, opening these new markets rapidly. Tell me about the trajectory of the business now. Like, how many markets are you going to open, and how do you measure what is successful when Braid Babes, you know, puts a stamp down in a specific region?
Yeah, great question. I mean, right now we have such basics, but we just brought on someone to do our financial model, and we have a huge strategy meeting for 2 days next week. So I'll have better answers next week. But right now it's roughly at like 1.5 million per city is what we're estimating, and that would be success for us. We're in our 4 cities right now. We have a lot of work to build up Nashville and Raleigh and prove that, you know, we can launch a new city where I don't live and show that it can do really great. they're actually already doing very, very well. Nashville is, if you know anything about Nashville, it is our target market. I didn't mention the services we do. So like women will book us, or men, but mostly women, will book us if they're attending a wedding. So maybe to get their hair done before they go to a wedding. They'll book us because they want to clean their house and have their hair out of their face. They'll book us for their kids parties. So we'll have like 2 braiders show up and do a cute party. Kids parties, bachelorettes, ladies nights, and divorce parties now. So Nashville, we do really, really well. So I say, I would hope to launch, honestly, 6 more cities next year. This year, we're working on all of our processes and strategy around launching a new city. And next year, we'll just be multiplying.
You were a mathematics major, I believe, at UB.
Yeah.
Who became, I think you were a software engineer, right, at Liaison?
Database, yeah.
Okay, a technologist at Liaison. And so give me the founding story and tell me why you're building this business in Buffalo.
Yeah, so I was at Liaison, and I started this 30-day braid challenge on Instagram. I started braiding my hair every day. My manager actually picked on me, and he was like, I can't take you seriously with that braid in your hair, because I had like big buns on top. He was like, I can't. But my friends started asking me to braid their hair, and then strangers, and then my schedule was full. And the whole way it worked out, I got away from the full-time job and, wasn't making a lot of money at first, of course, just braiding hair compared to a technology job. But I had faith. I listened to a lot of business podcasts. I knew that when people are asking you for something, there's more there. And so I just kind of took that leap of faith and said, if I'm going to do something cool with my life, this could be it. I actually didn't know how to braid hair before that. So the first braid I learned was 3 years ago, which is so crazy. And I love Buffalo because of, honestly, the communities. And it's not just like one community. Like Buffalo has all of its different chunks of communities. So I belong to quite a few. I'm a very big part of like the women small business owners. We all really, really help each other and support each other, which is, you don't find that a lot of places. And then obviously all the small businesses community. And then obviously we have the huge startup community. So I actually spend a lot of time in Nashville right now. And there is not a startup community that I can find here. Not one, not even like a small group. I've been looking for it. I can't find it. I don't have time to start it, but it says a lot about Buffalo.
Yeah. So here's my last question for you. You said your schedule was full, and there's lots of I guess sort of style-based businesses that are either boutique or regional businesses. Why did you look at what you were doing and say, this fits into the model of a growth stage scalable startup? Like, how did you decide that?
I think that's just my personality. Like, I don't want to go small. Like, if I'm going to do something, like, this is my one chance to take something huge. So I'm going to go all the way. I'm not going to stay, nothing against people that stay local, but that was not where my mindset was from day one. I was like, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be, huge. And I look up to Allie at Dry Bar. I actually just got her as a mentor. She's the founder of Dry Bar. I met her in Austin 2 weeks ago and got her on as a mentor. But I look up to women like that. They go national and they're on panels, they're talking, they're helping people. I aspire to be bigger than one local kind of business.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any reason to doubt you, Emily. So congratulations. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to our next entrepreneur, who is originally from the mountains in France and was running his company out of Bangkok before he and is now wearing a Bill shirt, before he decided in the midst of the pandemic to move both his company's headquarters and himself to Buffalo. So Remi Ducrocq is the founder and CEO of Kyklo, which builds software tools to support distributors in the electrical and automation space. Remi, nice shirt. How you doing today?
Good, very good. And thank you for having me. And yes, happy to, wear the Beals Mafia shirt. Buffalo is my new home, so happy to wear those colors.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us about Kyklo. What's the idea behind the business, and where are you kind of at right now?
Sure. So we essentially are an e-commerce solution helping distributors and manufacturers in the electrical and automation space to launch their own e-commerce shop, if you will. So really taking a traditional paper catalog business to online and using digital technology to grow their businesses. To date, we've raised $10 million. We are 50 people strong. We opened our Buffalo headquarters last year, and we are actually moving office next week. So we already outgrew the space we moved in just a year ago. So a lot of positive traction in the market, and COVID has made digital sales more important to everybody. So I'm very optimistic about the looking forward opportunities for the company.
So you're breaking news here with the this is what Buffalo Inno is all about. Kyklo's moving headquarters. So yeah, listen, Remi, tell me about the decision to uproot the company's administrative or sort of headquarters, I suppose.
So a lot of investors asked us, and we have investors from the Bay Area and from New York, and they asked like why Buffalo? And I think as a founder, what I'm obsessed about is being close to my customers. When you want to work with industrial background, blue collar, family-owned businesses, whether they're distributors and manufacturers, you want to be like-minded with them, right? You want to be aligned in terms of values, in terms of culture. And Buffalo has all of this, right? It's historically a very industrial town. People went through the ups and the downs, and they have that pride and they have that culture around the Bills and hockey, and that made just a magnificent culture match with the people we wanted to be close to and help succeed. So this is why we really chose Buffalo as a home. And on top of that, obviously, Buffalonians are so welcoming. We've looked at many other tier 2 cities, whether it's Denver or Nashville or Austin, and we haven't seen any level of energy and like what we found in Buffalo. So very happy to be here. And the business community, obviously, with the New York startup program was also very, very interesting for us. So for all those reasons, that's why we chose Buffalo as a home in the US.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a little redundant, but let's lean into that a little more. How has the experience been? I mean, so those were your sort of like top level expectations moving here. Have you met those expectations? And what are the pros and cons of like?
So in terms of the pros, I mean, we definitely found people who were like-minded with our customers. So in terms of when we announced to our newsletter community that we were opening in Buffalo, most people were like super happy for us, right? Like we had people calling us saying like, we just love you guys because you're in Buffalo. And I've never had that kind of response, when I would say I'm from Bangkok, whatever. Like in the US, you tell anyone in the Midwest that you're in Buffalo, they love you. Like maybe because of the Bills history and, Super Bowl, but nonetheless, that's a very, very amazing response. So this is really on the pro side. On the cons, to be frank, even though the startup community is growing, we still need more tech talents, right? Like if you want to build world-class organizations and teams, you need to have those talents available. And, right now there are people that we can find in the Buffalo region, but we still need also to try to source talents and bring them to Buffalo. And I think as we get more talents to come, that will become only easier over time. And, this is critical to, to build the top company. So this would be the only minus I would say for now, based on the market, talent pool versus New York or the Bay Area and other regions.
Yeah, certainly in our reporting, the idea of the tight talent, supply workforce right now is spanning all industries, and it definitely is hitting technology firms in Buffalo as well. So that's not the first time. Certainly, I've heard that, and probably not the last.
I'm sure.
So Remi, people did move around in the pandemic, but you're probably the only French guy who moved from Bangkok to Buffalo. Tell me what was your experience? I mean, personally.
So it was interesting because Ryan, who's our chief of staff, he sold me on Buffalo, and he's from Buffalo. So before we moved here, I went and I checked out all the cool places downtown. We went by the lakefront and so on. And the moment I moved, we opened an office and then we shut it down. Right? So then you work from home. So it gave me the opportunity to move around town and explore Hamburg Beach and Rochette Park and East Aurora. So it allowed me to kind of understand the subcultures and the sub-villages around town. And to be frank, people were super, super friendly, right? So they understood that it's not easy for me to relocate, be far from my family and friends, and not be able to go home because of the travel ban. And they were super supportive, right? So I would say that considering the context, it was one of the best experiences I could have hoped for, thanks to the people who were really supportive and friendly and, made the best out of difficult circumstances, if I could say.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, Remi, and hopefully the good vibes continue. We're going to move on now to We're going to move on now to the list of our entrepreneurs that we're introducing today, and that would be Irfan Khan, a cardiologist turned entrepreneur who is the founder and CEO of Circuit Clinical. So Circuit is a homegrown company. It won a 43 North award, I believe, 2 years ago, and is now making rapid progress toward its goal of becoming a nationwide clinical company. Hey, Doc, how you doing?
Good to see you, Dan. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. Thanks for being on. So same question. Summarize what Circuit Clinical is, and what it's becoming.
Sure. The problem we solve for is that every medicine that any of us or our loved ones take went through a clinical trial to get approved, and that process, as it exists today, is really too costly, and it takes too long. It's about $2 billion in 10 years to bring a medicine to market. And the reason for that is that most of them go through this really kind of lengthy process in just a few hospitals around the country. So our idea is, could you help other hospitals and healthcare spaces be successful at research? And could you help patients find their way to those options? And that's really Circuit's work, is to build a national network of health systems that haven't done research before, and then empower them with the tools and the experts, the staff that they need to be successful in that space. And that's really been the work of the last 5 years.
Okay, so you've been working on this problem for 5 years. How's it going now?
It's going good. We've been on a run. It's a little strange to say that the pandemic was good for the business, but I guess if you're building a company that's useful in discovering new therapies and diagnostics, this has been a pretty important time, especially as we've learned the utility of looking for new solutions. So we closed a Series B, $7.5 million at the end of last year. We brought on some really key talent that had national expertise. We've certainly grown our team in Buffalo up to about, I think it's 35 employees in Western New York, and 60 in total, and opened offices in Northern New Jersey, in New York City, Washington, D.C., and got a bunch more planned. And most importantly was really creating a partnership with LabCorp, the billion-dollar diagnostics company, that really empowers a path forward to growth across the country. I loved everything Emily said about it's good to be ambitious. Buffalo's home and Buffalo's headquarters, but you can hold that in your heart and still build a company that impacts every American.
Yeah. So what do the next couple of years look like? I mean, you've described this as, like, especially following the Series B round, is the moment that you really kind of hit the gas pedal and start scaling the business model that you've spent so much time developing.
Yeah, and I should be really clear. I mean, our key inflection point was winning at 43 North. So let me echo our good friend Maura Devlin, who's been just absolutely instrumental in accelerating Circuit's growth. I strongly encourage, if you know a founder or like a founder, tell them to apply for 43 North. It's an absolutely pivotal moment for us. It's really where all the good stuff began to happen. And secondarily, I'd say that we got to that point because of the Buffalo ecosystem as a whole. Startup New York, UB's Buffalo Institute for Genomics and Data Analytics, run by Christina, Orsi, and Norma Nowak. Launch New York. We joke about it all the time. If there's been somebody out there in Western New York to help a startup kind of make it through the bottleneck, we've been helped by that organization, Western New York Impact Fund, and certainly a bunch of local funds that want to invest in companies that build great teams that care about Buffalo and Western New York as a whole. So I think that's the definition of a great ecosystem. We've benefited from all of it. And what that's led to is really these national stage strategic partnerships, a couple that we'll be announcing here in short order, between friends, where we're working on our Series C, and that's going at an accelerated rate. And what that lets us do then is really staff up at home for where the stuff that's centralized is based, but also grow out across the country at really accelerated scale. Our goal is really within 2 years to deliver a national solution to accelerate the development of new medicines.
Yeah, that's nice to know about your Series C. I should host these panels more often. I learn a lot of good stuff. I get a lot of bang for my buck here.
You'll be the first to get the details. You guys have been great to us. And honestly, I think having part of an ecosystem is having, people who want to tell those stories, Dan. I think I'm not blowing smoke at you. I think we've all benefited from the fact that you care about the ecosystem and that you tell a story candidly, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's important, especially for early stage companies, to have that ability to sort of share what the journey looks like. And I think that's what makes it's easier for people who've never invested in startups to consider high growth companies as part of their portfolio. And that's critical. That's a critical part of the ecosystem is people who can taking the journey to be angels and kind of getting over the fear of being wrong and what if it doesn't work out, and really being part of the acceleration. And that's certainly what Buffalo's got going in spades.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think you just talked your way onto the next one that we host. You were a surgeon who decided to become a startup entrepreneur. Why?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's personally motivated. My dad got Parkinson's, and we watched a bunch of trials go kind of nowhere. I was a cardiac electrophysiologist, so I used to put in pacemakers and defibrillators. So while it's great work, and I mean, I absolutely loved practicing in Buffalo for more than a decade, really wonderful people. It really was not part of the solution to what was sitting in the back of my head. We had been experimenting with doing clinical trials in cardiology in outpatient spaces, and then the ideas for how that would work across the country and what it could mean for everybody. I mean, for me, it's Parkinson's, but everybody's got a disease that's impacted their family in a way that really matters. And what's been interesting about the journey is how many people have joined Circuit largely because they're wildly talented and could work in technology or work in healthcare. But the mission is what attracts them, which is that this is their chance to contribute to transforming how fast medicines come to market.
Yeah. Okay. So, one last question here, because you already sort of touched on the community in Buffalo and how it's been supported. So I want to ask you sort of a personal question about entrepreneurship. Circuit has had some triumphant moments, and it's had some times over the course of its 5 years where you were struggling. So talk to me about what you've learned about how you build a successful startup that's now doing the hockey stick, but wasn't always there.
No, absolutely. It's been maybe a year and a half's worth of rapid acceleration, but it's been 4 years or so of real learning and real trying to stay alive. I will say this candidly. I think this is the ultimate startup truism in the early stage, is that you're made or broken by the people that you associate with. And that can be the people on your team for sure. You need to be able to recruit a really talented team, but it's also the people who care about your company who aren't inside the company. We had a really huge win this year with a dear friend of the Buffalo ecosystem, an architect of it, frankly, Bill Maggio, joining Circuit as a senior advisor. And Bill's a great example of having access to people who not only have been down the journey before, but can see what you guys could become, you individually and the company as a whole, and can accelerate that. So, and there's Bill is the right partner to take us in as we go into that next level. But all the way along, it's been really the caliber of the people who've reached out to try to help Circuit as it goes along. And I think that's what great ecosystems create. They create these collaborations and these collisions where people who don't necessarily have to care about the team are interested because they see the value to the whole ecosystem. And that's really been Circuit's story.
Irfan, thanks so much for joining us today. And, thanks to all of the entrepreneurs who were on the line, who shared their stories. And we appreciate it. And like I said, we'll be watching and writing about your progress going forward. So that's 4 of Buffalo's fastest growing companies, but really it's just a sampling of what people are building here. Last year at Business First Buffalo Inno, we charted about 25 companies that collectively raised more than $200 million in private capital. This year, we've already written about 16 companies that have raised funding. And I don't want to turn this into a plug, but Buffalo Inno is the first and often the only place where you're going to find out about those events. So I'll let you all sort of digest my shameless self-promotion there as I transition into our panel discussion with some of the leading thinkers in Buffalo's startup economy. And I really want to talk about how far Buffalo's come, what it looks like now for people who want to found companies or to invest with them. So I'm going to do a series of quick introductions before I start firing hardballs at our panel here. I'm going to start today with Dan Magnuszewski, who is the co-founder and CTO at ACV Auctions, Buffalo's first software unicorn that went public earlier this year. Also on the line, if he made it back from soccer practice, is his son's soccer practice is Eric Reich, the co-founder of Campus Labs, which is now known as Anthology. Eric chairs the 43 North Board and co-chairs the Western New York Regional Economic Development Council. Third, we have Christina Orsi, the University at Buffalo's Associate Vice President for Economic Development, who oversees UB projects such as its venture fund and its new 42,000 square foot incubator on the medical campus. And last but not least, on the horn is Rohit Gupta, an experienced venture capitalist who is based in Berkeley, California, and who's invested in many well-known successful companies. As the managing partner of Future Communities Capital, Rohit's firm has made investments recently in 2 Buffalo-based startups, Agnomy and Helix Intel. So Dan, I want to start with you. You were one of the first people I met when I started covering startups in 2013. I think we met at the gymnasium at Midnight College during a startup weekend. Yeah. The very next year, you co-founded ACV Auctions. Talk to me about why you believed that you could build a market leader in Buffalo. What was the basis of your belief that this could work here?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, even prior to that, just, in terms of the startup community, the tech community here in Buffalo, we started to kind of from a grassroots level, start seeing some momentum. We started, and just kind of had this belief that, other cities have these things going on. Why can't we, right? We have talented people. We have, a lot of times it's a matter of connecting the community, but, and I think we've seen, there was a couple companies prior to us, whether it was Campus Labs, whether it was Liaison or Synacor, some of these other companies that stayed here were able to build successful companies, and do it here in Buffalo and become successful. So for me, it's one of those things too. I like to try to do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So as everyone else flees for bigger, more expensive markets, I kind of don't need to follow the herd in order to, get what I need to get done. I think we really felt that, we had the talent here, we had the connections. I think for the type of industry we're going into as well, being automotive, it makes sense. A lot of the investors we talked to out of New York City or the West Coast didn't think people were still going to own their own cars or drive their own cars in 2 years. And they kind of forget about all of this stuff in the middle of the country that where people like to drive pickup trucks and drive their own cars. So, I think depending on the business and what you're doing, for us, it made, total sense to do it here in Buffalo. And, there was really never any thought around where do we have to go to do this. We're building an online company that's going to be a national and international brand. We can just do it here because we'll eventually get everywhere else.
And indeed you did. But tell me about the first couple of years. What do you think went right for ACV? Like what is the seminar in turning an idea into a hot, sort of growth oriented story?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it starts with having the right team and having the right, the ability for, kind of checking all the boxes of things that need to get done. And you have to wear a ton of different hats, but I think we started off, we had, a good team that could kind of handle all aspects of the business, getting it off the ground, getting the product built, doing all the back end operational stuff. So I think that was super important. Obviously we had, a lot of great mentors locally, obviously Eric, but Ron and Jordy, George Shimon, and others who have kind of, were there and, able to help us as we were going through these different areas. And, obviously another benefit of, as we started growing, we started, Joe, who was a CEO, realized he didn't want to be a CEO after a certain point. And, the CEO role changes as you start to scale the business. And we were fortunate, we were able to bring George over as he was, looking for his next opportunity. We were able to bring him over, who had gone through an IPO process and built out a product company. And, we were able to kind of integrate him into the team. And, from there, just be able to, attract great talent and understand, how to scale our sales and go into new markets and things like that. So, it's, there's definitely a lot of different factors, that come into play at that early stage. And, one mistake that's a little too severe could kill you. So, we were fortunate enough to make mistakes, but nothing fatal. So, but yeah, I think it's really just kind of people we had around us and the support we had, and things like that. And fortunately it worked out.
Dan, we'll back to you in a second. I want to move on to Eric Reich, who co-founded one of the first successful tech startups in Buffalo. He started Campus Labs in 2001 and grew it through several acquisitions before moving on to his next phase in the last few years. Eric has also traveled extensively throughout the country and is heavily involved still in Buffalo's startup scene. Eric, I wanted to sort of juxtapose what it was like starting Campus Labs with the environment now. What was it like starting a company, a startup in Buffalo in 2001 versus now?
Well, it was certainly totally different, and the infrastructure and the amount of experience and support you could get was dramatically different because it was basically zero. In 2001, there were really only literally one handful of people who knew how to do a startup in Buffalo at real scale. And certainly George had already started his journey at Synacor, and George was, largely mentored by Jordy and Ronnie the same way that Dan and I were. So, there's three of really the five people that were doing something. So you had George's company, Ashok's company, and you had Campus Labs, and that was really the entire tech scene. There were a handful of other companies that were, I would call more tech-enabled businesses rather than true tech, businesses that were building real industrial tech projects or tech products. And then you also had, all the other companies that were trying to figure out what technology really meant in the traditional workforce. So certainly there were tech forces at M&T and Riches and all the typical names, but they weren't tech companies by any stretch either. So if you wanted to build a tech company, it was really challenging to get support, to get mentorship. But it was also really challenging to get the staff that could help you grow and become successful, because a lot of the true tech talent were locked away in some of these traditional workplaces where it was, very cushy and the future was not only known, but it was, much more easy to describe what a year would look like working at a big company than it was a startup, because Buffalo really hadn't been bit by the startup bug. So there weren't a lot of people in Buffalo that knew what that meant, the level of dedication, tenacity, effort, but also, working with incomplete information and a lack of clarity on what the next year or the next month or the next week was going to look like. That was a real challenge. And if I, sort of look at what I think will ultimately be the biggest benefit to Buffalo from ACV, and, certainly ACV has added a tremendous amount to our ecosystem over the last few years, but the most important part will end up being there are now hundreds of people who know how to do a startup, and hundreds of people who have worked in that environment, hundreds of people who now cannot imagine working in any other environment than a startup environment. And, I think that there'll be, 10, 15, 20 people who leave ACV and start other companies. That's what we need to create a sustainable startup ecosystem and to have the startup ecosystem grow at rates that we've seen in other cities.
Yeah, that's funny you say bit by the tech bug, because that's a hard thing for a journalist to quantify. It's always sort of anecdotal, unless you kind of look at Buffalo's own history and you look at, where Dan was one of like 10 people you could meet at Z80 in 10 years ago. Now, I don't, there's hundreds, if not thousands of faces working at tech growth-oriented startups. It's not just in our imagination anymore. I mean, it's a real thing. So, but Eric, I wanted to ask you, how do you think Buffalo stacks up nationally as a tech hub? How should we be thinking of ourselves in a national context?
In a national context, we're absolutely emerging and making great progress. I'm not going to lie and sugarcoat it and say that, we're a leading tech hub at this point. But I think the path is clear, and we have the potential to do that if we can make the right investments and have the right things happen. Using Dan's story where he, learned a lot at a couple of places working in tech at established companies, and then, sort of waited until he saw the right opportunity to go start his own thing. When Dan did that, there was only a pool of, 30, 40, 50 people who had that mindset or were behind the curtain on how all that worked. Right now, like I said, now that there's hundreds or thousands, hopefully what we see over the next 3 to 5 years is those people starting companies. And candidly, our biggest challenge as a community is, will there be enough talent to help those companies grow? Right. So if you think of all the people who now know how to start a startup, if they all started companies tomorrow, where would the talent come from? It would come from other companies that might create disruption, or they just wouldn't be able to get enough talent to accelerate at the right pace. So, I think as a community, most of our effort now needs to be spent on really connecting the value chain on talent, on education, on apprenticeship, on mentorship, the things that can make a true impact and move the needle from a human capital standpoint. Because it would be a real shame if we finally got to the point where we had enough startup activity to call our community emergent and moving forward, and not enough local capital to support it. And you have all these tech companies in Buffalo who are challenged to grow, and now they have to go find talent in other cities and create jobs in other cities. That's the last thing we want to have happen. So I think that the next challenge is making sure we have enough talent. And then lastly, I'll say, to make sure that that talent becomes more representative of our entire community, so that when you go into these tech shops, you see the right cross section of our city. You see female engineers, you see African American engineers, you see people from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds contributing to this tech community. Because the thing that makes tech so magical as a city builder is it has relatively low training bar compared to the wages that it brings, right? So you can be a very, very conversant contributory developer after 24 to 30 months of training at very high wages. And there aren't a lot of other occupations where we can say that. So we need to move people through the continuum of learning about STEM, learning about engineering, learning about software development, and get people into roles where they can contribute, not only for the community, but also for themselves, and see neighborhoods change as a result of that economic activity.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to move on now to Rohit. Rohit, tell us the story about how Buffalo came to your attention as an investable place.
Sure. Yeah, I look happy to be here. Excited to hear about all the companies and growth, and definitely seeing some old familiar friends today. So that's awesome. Hopefully we'll be back in Buffalo soon. But look, one of the truths in Silicon Valley, and that's where I am, is that the best talent in the world comes here. Right. And so our thinking was, if the talent is coming here, like definitely there's some native talent here, but it's coming from cities like Buffalo. So it just makes sense for us as a fund to go out and find talent before it comes here. Right. And that's led us to, 8 years ago, almost 10 years ago, we invested in Philadelphia. We looked at all sorts of these kind of cities that are off the beaten path, right, where we can sort of work with founders, work with entrepreneurs, help them with their vision, get in earlier. And they don't need to come to the Valley. They can operate a business just fine anywhere in the world. And look, 2020 has proven that without a doubt, right? Like the access to capital, access to talent, everyone's remote now. And, it's kind of changed. You kind of come back. You can see I'm still in my home office, but super excited to just see like the growth of cities like Buffalo in terms of like the tech landscape.
Okay. So what's your analysis? You came to Buffalo and learned about it, helped judge in 43 North.
That's right. And
what did you find when you got here? What's your analysis of Buffalo's strengths and weaknesses as a startup economy?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. Going back to your first question, right? I got a cold email from Colleen at 43 North saying, "Hey, we'd love to meet you." I said, "Sure." It sounds like an interesting program. We met in Los Angeles. I was down on business, and just kind of hit it off. I said, "This is interesting. I want to see what you're doing." And I think there are a lot of programs that sort of have like an accelerator, an incubator, like there's tons of them out there, and they all sort of give money out, whatever. The contest part's a little different. It's a little fun. It's a little interesting. But what really sold me on Buffalo is that the idea that this is not a private organization, right? Like this is state level money. So you have the state involved, like say New York. You have the county, you have the city, you have this alignment across different spheres, right? Even like the universities involved. So there's like this huge like medical systems. Everyone sort of like bought into this idea of growing Buffalo as a startup economy. And so for us, that becomes like critical to say like, that's how we build something here. What I'm really excited about is to see Buffalo sort of take that next step. We can start leveraging those assets, right? Like if we think about what we want to do in terms of like healthcare, you have world-class healthcare in Buffalo, you have world-class universities, you have smart cities, smart state, smart government, all these sort of things that you can start leveraging their data assets or their access to like to thought leadership. That sort of takes Buffalo to the next step.
Very good. Thank you. I think Rohit, I think your microphone might be scraped. You may want to unplug your.
Will do.
A little bit of side noise.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So, Christina, I wrote an article this week, a national analysis of technology hubs. Buffalo score was kind of up and down, but it really shone through in the amount of tech-based graduates that come out of local colleges. UB, of course, is a massive institution and one that's now focusing heavily on fostering innovation, both within its footprint and in the general community. So I thought we'd start off by having you summarize UB's various startup-related projects. What does the university have going on, and what is the goal of those things?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Glad to be here. So UB has really grown, I would say, over the last 5 years. Its entrepreneur infrastructure, recognizing that universities do need to be a key partner in growing the entrepreneur ecosystem, right? And it benefits us to be able to continue to attract talented students and faculty, and it benefits the community. So we launched a student entrepreneur center 5 years ago, Blackstone Launchpad. We've now had more than 16,000 students go through programs, and last year alone, I think over 40 of those students started new ventures. So we're teaching students, and the other thing that we're doing is we're connecting them into the startup community. So a lot of them go on to have intern experiences. I think probably just about every company here has had UB intern, but that's an important part of getting them connected to the entrepreneur community. Most of the students at UB are not from Western New York. We're a net importer. So the more we can connect them into the community here, that increases their stickiness. So from a talent pipeline, that's a real focus for us to make those connections. And we do that through our Blackstone Launchpad. We also look to increasingly take the research that happens at UB from thousands of faculty and hundreds of innovations every year and translate more of those into impactful products and services by starting companies around them. Again, we've been really focused on increasing the kind of infrastructure around translating that research from the lab to the market. And are seeing some real traction in some of those startups starting to raise money and create jobs in Buffalo. And then the third thing, that we look to do, we're a state-funded public research university, so it's really part of our mission to make an impact in our community. So we extend our entrepreneur services to entrepreneurs throughout Western New York, whether it's free legal services to help them get incorporated correctly. We just opened another incubator downtown, so incubation facilities, and we just launched a pre-seed fund. So UB's really been trying to focus on being more of a partner and connector and leveraging our capacity to provide entrepreneur services.
Yeah, don't sell the new facility short. It's very large, gleaming, and also we've talked about as the university seeks to sort of recalibrate its external image and becoming a closer partner with the university. Like, tell us about the facility and what the point of it is.
Yeah, so it's right in the heart of downtown, which is intentional, again, to create more connectivity and to also provide a launching point to bring more students off of our main campus in the suburbs to downtown. It's about 42,000 square feet of everything from co-working to office to lab spaces. So if you need, lab spaces, I think we're probably the only incubator to offer that. Affordable, flexible, great place to locate if you want to be near other entrepreneurs, but also be able to access things like the investment fund and some of our, mentors and entrepreneurs and residents. And it's not just for UB, although certainly some of the companies there were founded by UB faculty or students. It's open to any entrepreneur that's looking to scale a venture in the Buffalo area. And so, we welcome whether you're an alum or affiliated with UB or not. you can come and get connected. And part of what we'll offer is those connection points to UB to ensure that you're getting, a talent pipeline ready for you.
All right, thank you. All right, time is running a little short here. A couple more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Eric, I wanted to talk about the community. You're part of a group of top-level business leaders who are spending a lot of time trying to create a technology community in downtown Buffalo. Talk to me about that. Who's involved in this, and what are their goals?
Well, certainly we had a huge
I can't, Eric, I'm gonna, I can't hear you.
The M&T Tech Hub investment and all the work and the investment Doug Jamal has made in downtown certainly was a huge part of that.
Eric, I'm sorry, but yeah, we're gonna have to get you a
Can you
better.
hear me? Want me to start again?
Let's try one more time. If you cut out again, we'll have to, maybe we'll just write a story about it. You there?
Blind, so maybe that'll help. Certainly the M&T investment has been instrumental, and what Doug has brought to that has been, fantastic. I think if you look at most tech communities that are moving forward, they do have one center of gravity. They have a place where a lot of the technical and entrepreneurial activity gravitates towards, which allows you to build some density and have those collisions and have the magic of not only what's happening on a day-to-day basis with those companies, but what's happening in the restaurants and the coffee shops and the workout facilities and all the amenities around that, where you see people gathering together, you see people meeting. That's a type of economic activity that not only contributes to job creation and company creation, but also just the general growth of a piece of real estate and a geography that can change the cities. So we're really happy and encouraged by what we're seeing around the tower, and hopefully it happens in other areas of downtown and spreads to the edges of downtown where we can see some of that fantastic activity in other places.
Thank you. Yeah, we heard that nice and clear, so appreciate it. Dan, you're the co-founder of a company that in 7 years went from 3 employees to a $3 billion market cap and trading on the NASDAQ. Talk to me about your personal goals going forward. I mean, I know that you're still a high-level executive at ACV Auction, but what do you want to see in the startup community, and what do you see yourself as part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've shown different levels of success in the past, and I think with what we've done, hopefully that's kind of another level of what can be done, and how fast you can grow, where you can raise money from. I think we've attracted investors from all over, and top tier investors across the world to Buffalo. A lot of them are always reaching out, wondering who the next ACV is in Buffalo, and wanting that intel and stuff like that. So, I think for me, it's like, how do we continue it, and how do we, make sure that there are, more of these companies coming and growing, and, the ability to scale, and, whether it's go public or some other, successful exit, but really just how do we start building some great businesses and in Buffalo. And, I think there's the talent conversation. I think there's 3,000 to 4,000 computer science students at the University of Buffalo. So it's like one of the largest, computer science universities in the country. So how are we getting industry integrated in with that? And how are we taking advantage of that, and as opposed to just doing what we've always done, which is kind of wait at the end of the funnel and wait to see what talent's left over, while the rest kind of go to the Googles and Amazons of the world. So yeah, I think that's really important. I think, hopefully, with current liquidity events and stuff like that, there'll be people who have gone through this process, have some extra money in their pocket, want to either start their own venture or start investing in other startups. So, I think, what I'd like to see is really just kind of more of a doubling down in terms of what we've been doing, and just seeing more and more people getting involved in a bigger way. Because I think we've we have the momentum. The key is just to keep it going and as I said, double down on it and make sure that we're taking it to the next level and we're not just hitting a plateau. So that's any of the companies I talk to or whatever, it's really trying to get those companies thinking in high growth. How do you scale? How do you do these things that a lot of companies haven't experienced? And it's a different mindset going from kind of a slow growth, yay, we're doing pretty good, that's great, to how do you become a market leader? How do you grow nationally? How do you do all that stuff? And sometimes it's just someone yelling at you who's done it before and knows the 3 mistakes you're going to make down the road and can help you kind of veer away from those. So for me, that's kind of what I'm excited about, and looking forward to kind of the next wave of companies. And I know what we have today in terms of the support of the community and everything. There's good infrastructure there that wasn't even really there when we were getting going. So we've come a long way. So just keep going.
Rohit, tell me how you got to know Agnomi and Helix Intel. How did they impress you, and why are you excited about them?
Right. I met Helix first because Peter, who's at Helix, was at 43 North. And so he emailed me, gosh, about a year ago and said, hey, I'm at this new startup, would love to chat with you about it. And knowing Peter, I took the call and kind of, went through our paces with them on diligence. And I think one of the interesting things about Buffalo in general is that people are very supportive of each other. I know it's been echoed on this call already. And so, I said, look, I think I can help you guys, like obviously companies outside the Valley do business differently than we do out here. And so let me give you guys a little bit of Valley polish. Let me kind of direct you into how to sort of run a funding round, all sorts of stuff. And, in the grand scheme of things, I think I helped him, but I was probably a bit pestering at the time. And I think it worked out really well. We're very happy to have invested in them. And John DeWald, the founder there, said, hey, my friend has a startup, you should talk to them. And that's kind of how these things work. I think it speaks to the health of the ecosystem here when people have their friends are in the industry and they can refer to them. And also, I pat on the back, like I think they appreciate sort of outsiders who kind of like can shepherd people a little bit in Buffalo, and happy to do it. Like we've always been value add investors. And so it was, that's how we got to know Dr. Rifkin and Greg at Ognomy.
First of all, I want to speak up for the professional pests everywhere. We have a role to play in all this. You spoke about the kind of opportunities that those companies saw, that they were sort of covered things that weren't necessarily super obvious ideas, and the commonality between those companies. Tell everybody else about that.
But what these companies do?
Yeah. So in other words, you said that there was a real kind of sophisticated look under the hood of these industries to see opportunities, and that both companies are sort of magic.
One of the things that's interesting is that going to a new market, you can get in front of a thought leader real fast, right? John DeWalt, he's a thought leader in his field. Like he knows his space better than anyone. Dr. Rifkin knows his game better than anyone. And they're out there, they can build a startup, right? They just feel empowered to do these things in Buffalo while they're sort of like, doing their thing. Like Dr. Rifkin's still a practicing clinician, and he's got a startup that he runs. And I think in the Valley, where rents are probably, 5 to 10x more, engineers are probably like 2 to 3x more. Everything is just way more expensive. It gets a lot harder to do those things, and that's what really is exciting about coming. And I don't do a lot of deals in the Valley, to be honest with you. I love going outside and finding people on their home turf.
Thanks, Christina. We're going to wrap it up with you. You sort of gave me a roster of UB projects earlier, but I want to hear what you think about the momentum in the community. What's your take on the innovation within the university and in the community?
Yeah, I think if you look at that, everyone's talked about it, right? But over the last 5 years, I think we've really started taking off. lots of room to grow, and that's the plan, right? That, you know, we'd love to be at a steady state out of UB where there's dozens of new startups coming and continuing to contribute to more of the tech talent, which is also, I think you heard everyone here talk about, that's the other critical part of a thriving startup community. It's not just the startups and the founders, but making sure we got the talent to enable their growth. So we're all in on doubling down on how do we form more of those connections. I mean, frankly, Dan and what ACV, they're a model example. He's on the campus all the time, whether he's involved with hackathons, innovation sprints with students, guest lecturing projects. We have tons of opportunities for students to connect hands-on experiences. But I would just say, let us help you do that, because by getting connected, frankly, we're going to increase the retention of our students, you know, in our community, because they are attracted. You know, Google's on our campus, Amazon's on our campus. So we got a phenomenal opportunity to double down there and continue to probably low-hanging fruit, increase, you know, some of the stickiness of the talent that's already here. And then, like I said, you know, continuing to really support the entrepreneur community so that as we're bringing online more support services, we can extend those to entrepreneurs throughout Western New York.
Very cool. All right, well, the time draws nigh here, so I'm gonna wrap up the event. We do have one really good question in the Q&A, but it's not the kind of thing that I would want to give short shrift, the question about access to capital at a national and local level. So Joanna, I'm not ignoring you. I will follow up with you individually and separately. You know, second of all, thanks Dan, Eric, Christina, and Rohit, and for all of our entrepreneurs who joined us earlier. It was really cool to hear all of your insights, to connect and reconnect with all of you. I think your points are going to be really well taken by a pretty expansive nationwide audience that we had today. We once again wanted to recognize founding sponsors of Buffalo Inno. That's 43 North and the University at Buffalo Business and Entrepreneur Partnerships. So that's all for me. Anybody participating or watching, feel free to reach out to me anytime, and look forward to seeing you all again.